Welcome to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little different. After some feedback on the content I was creating up to this point, I've been given some feedback to maybe jump into some other categories other than gaming. So today we're going to look at some sports analysis, and for that we're going to look at the 2021 Steelers draft class. I'm going to be ranking them from A plus to F. We're going to take a look at that. So without further ado, let us begin. For this one, I've seen a lot of people say either A, don't take running backs in the first round, or he was an early second round pick, and thus this was kind of a reach and they didn't like the pick. I could not disagree more. I think Harris is an outstanding player. I thought towards the end of the first round is an outstanding value. I'd seen some mocks have him in the teens going to the Dolphins. So us being able to land him where we did, I think was an absolute steal for a player of that caliber. He's been compared favorably to past running backs like Steven Jackson and Le'Veon Bell, very hard runners that can also catch the ball. I don't understand how you can have a talent that high and say the first round is not where you deserve to go. Also, as far as position of need, if you look at the Steelers' rush offense last year, it was abysmal. It was last in the league by, I think, a pretty healthy margin. So to take a running back in the first round, while some people don't like that idea just as a concept, this was our biggest team need, one of the best players available at the time we were drafting. I think one of the big boards had him at 20th best overall just based on skill, and we drafted 25th, I believe it was this year. So he already kind of had a little mini fall to us just to get to us. There were already several teams that were interested in trading back in front of us to draft him, noticeably the Dolphins. So being able to stay still and fill the biggest team need in the first round, I can't do anything but an A plus for Najee Harris. I see this kid being an absolute dynamo. Le'Veon Bell 2.0, maybe a little bit of a tougher runner with a little bit less vision, but I'll take a little bit less vision if you can break a few more tackles. The hurdle the kid put on the kid from I think Notre Dame was insane. A great pass catcher, a adequate blocker. I mean, there's really nothing this guy can't do from a running back position. There's no reason he would ever need to come off the field other than to take a break after running over defenses. And he does seem to get stronger as the games go on. So I don't see anything you can give this kid but an A plus. It was a position of need. It was a great personal value for the player itself. All around, it was something we needed to get done was to fix the run game. That's a huge step in that direction. For the second round pick, we took a tight end out of, I believe it was Penn State, Pat Fryermuth. Good luck saying that last name. This pick, so I've seen player comps on him at the low end. I've seen people compare him to Eric Ebron, who's currently our tight end, our starting tight end now. The kind of the ceiling comparison, which is almost insane, is Rob Gronkowski. So even if he doesn't reach that kind of ceiling, which is obviously best case scenario, if he's a better version of the tight end we have now, but on a rookie deal, that means we don't have to re-sign Eric next year, which will save us 8 million or so in cap space, having a very cheap second round pick probably starting for us. So value 2022 and later is absolutely there. Value for this current season, we have Eric signed. I don't think we're going to cut him or trade him. So this was absolutely not a position of need as far as early draft picks, unless someone absolutely insane fell to us. I don't think he fell. I think he kind of went where he was supposed to go. So I don't think there was a reach, but I don't think the position of need required a second round pick. And for that, we're going to go B for Mr. Fryermuth. Third round pick was Mr. Green out of Illinois, I believe, which was a guard slash center hybrid when he played in college. In the Steelers system, he's projected as only a center. I think we take our guards a little thicker than what Green plays at. So he's going to be a center and probably the starter from I'd say at least week 5. Realistically, talent wise, he would have BJ Finney beat out week 1, and definitely the Hausenhower kid that was Pouncey's backup last year. But center does need to obviously know like the ins and the outs of the playbook, like the back of their hand. So will he have all of that going for him week one? Hard to say. Hard to say. So I think definitely by midpoint in the first in his first year, his rookie year, he'll be starting. I think honestly, even after maybe like the fifth or sixth game, he'll be starting. And the first few weeks, he'll be probably the primary interior backup at any of the positions in case someone does go down early to injury. And unless someone goes down early to injury, say DeCastro, because he's a little bit on the older side, I definitely see him taking over and starting. If DeCastro would go down, then I could see him starting at guard from there on out, and Finney starting at center for the rest of the year. That's the only way I don't see Green starting at center the second half of the year on. So if you're getting a starting center, quality kid, and you're getting him in the third round without having to trade up if it's a huge area of need, that's an A pick. It's got to be an A pick. Going into the fourth round, we had two picks, our natural pick and a compensatory pick from losing Javon Hargrave. For our actual pick, we took Moore, an offensive tackle out of Texas A&M. I've seen some people say he's a reach, and I've seen some people say he's a steal. Once you start getting into these later rounds, these are kids that I obviously not watching a ton of college football, don't have a lot of knowledge on. So we're going to go with C. I think he is primarily backup his first year. That could always change with an injury. Chooks Okafor, who was our starting right tackle last year, and potentially, scary enough, our starting left tackle this year, had a lot of penalties on him last year. So if he is highly penalized or injured, maybe more slides in there. The upside to him is I've seen him with his weight and size be projected as a left tackle instead of a right tackle, which is huge. If you can get a starting left tackle in the fourth round, even if it takes a year or two to get his strength and conditioning and technique up, that's a massive, massive steal getting a starting left tackle in the fourth. So we're going to put him a C for this year, but he could honestly be maybe the steal of the draft based on what we needed and getting him in the fourth round. Second pick in the fourth round was Duke Johnson. I believe he was also out of Texas A&M. And look, we definitely needed depth at inside backer. He's going to be depth at inside backer. But we also re-signed Vince Williams. We re-signed Robert Splain. So did we need another inside backer in the fourth round, especially one that not a lot of draft experts were super, super high on? I think this could have been where we went cornerback. It's a little hard to see us going this deep in the draft without having drafted one when we lost not only our starting cornerback on the right side, but also our starting slot cornerback. So they're putting a lot of faith in re-signing Cam Sutton and not going cornerback in any of the first four rounds. I really also think it's kind of why people are down on Pat Fryermuth in the second round. There was some really good quality corners that we could have had that we passed up on to take a tight end, which was not an area of need. So it's hard to give him anything other than a C. He's only going to be a rotational kind of player, special teams kind of player this year. And then going forward, maybe he competes next year with Splain. I don't see them bringing Vince Williams back. They already tried to cut him this year, but because of the salary cap, they couldn't bring in anyone else. I was really hoping for Avery Williamson to come back personally, but he probably wanted too much money. So they brought back Vince Williams to start this year. Splain's a good kid, but he got exposed pretty hardcore at times last year. I don't see him being a starter. I see him being a very good backup, but I don't know if Johnson's ever going to be a starter either. He just didn't have the tools to be a higher round draft pick, and I don't know if he's ever going to take that next step. Fifth round pick is Loudermilk. This one has a ton of kind of controversy to him. Not so much because the kid's like bad or has done anything in college that would hurt his draft stock, but because he was not a player that a lot of people had on their draft boards at all to be taken. Most had him as a priority free agent type of signing. So for the Steelers to take him in the fifth round was a little bit of a reach. Also, we didn't have a fifth round draft pick. We traded that to get Avery Williamson last year when we had so many injuries at linebacker. So to get back into the fifth round this year, we traded our fourth round pick next year. So this is really a fifth round pick, but it's kind of costing us a fourth round pick to draft him in the fifth. That's always going to be a little rough. I would have preferred, now granted, it always takes a team to trade with you to get back into that round. But if they were going to do that, I would have rather seen them trade, say, a sixth or seventh round pick this year and then a fifth next year. That way, you're not really losing a higher round pick. You're giving up two picks. They only gave up one pick to trade back into the fifth this year, but that was a fourth round pick. By trading two later round picks, I think you get better value because a lot of these later round guys don't work out. They're really all crapshoots after about the third round. Anything fourth round and beyond is career backup kind of player, or maybe if you get super lucky and your scouting department is amazing, you find a diamond in the rough, like us taking Antonio Brown in the sixth round, I believe. But typically, players that late aren't going to be like your big time starters. So I think we got to give. I mean, I don't want to give the kid an F. We're going to go with a D because coughing up a fourth round pick next year to get him is rough. It's definitely rough. Um, so we basically had four fourth round picks or three fourth round picks this year. Um, and yeah, that's where he's going to go based off of the trade more than his production. The upside to him is Kevin Colbert, who's obviously the Steelers GM. If you're listening to anything about the Steelers, then you probably know who Kevin Colbert is. He's been a draft god for us and has found some really good steals late in later rounds, kind of like Brown. And he said he sees Cam Hayward in this kid. So if he sees Cam Hayward in this kid, then maybe, maybe. But for what we paid to get him, and for most other draft experts, not even seeing him as a draftable candidate, but as a priority free agent, that's rough. That is a rough pick. In the sixth round, the Steelers went with Quincy Roche, I believe is how you say his name. This is one of those picks that there's been a lot of hype saying he may be the steal of the draft or a steal of the draft. Um, as far as position of need, he's an outside linebacker, and we lost Bud Dupree. Everyone knows that to the Titans. And the kid we drafted 2 years ago to replace Dupree when he was going to leave, Highsmith, when he came in when Dupree got hurt last year, he did okay, but he definitely didn't play to Bud Dupree's level, which is a hard thing to expect out of a rookie. But at the same time, if you don't see that, then you kind of have to plan for maybe he is going to cap out at just being an okay player. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have always relied on having fantastic outside linebackers. You can't be okay and start for us at outside backer. He could be okay and be top backup at both positions. So getting someone who may end up being a starter, may end up being a really good player in the sixth round is an absolute bargain. And that is what I've heard a lot of people talk about this Roche kid. Again, I'm not a huge college football buff, so I go by a lot of the boards and a lot of the analytics. He's definitely a kid with high production in the college game, and a lot of people had him as a third round graded player that we were able to nab in the sixth round. So that is absolutely huge, really, really huge. Then we have a pair of seventh round picks, our natural pick, and another compensatory pick. I can't remember who the compensatory pick was for. So the first pick that we did with our natural pick was a cornerback. Kid's name's Norwood. I didn't see a lot of the college tape on him showing me anything that was going to be a starter or even a high level contributor in the NFL game. That's not to say he couldn't. They obviously seen something in him that they thought they could coach, and he's a very small player. But NFL teams obviously have strength and conditioning coaches. They could probably put 10 to 15 pounds on this kid in a year or two, and at that size, then maybe he can make some plays as a cornerback. But he looked very undersized. He did look very fast, which I know Steelers like in their cornerbacks when they draft them. But I really don't trust the Steelers drafting cornerbacks, anyways. We had two really good cornerbacks this past year, and both of those were free agent signings. The Steelers just don't have a great scouting department when it comes to defensive backs. Even the kid we drafted in the first round a few years ago, we just passed on his fifth round or fifth year option, Terrell Edmonds. He was definitely a huge reach. And he's been one of the few DBs that we've drafted that has actually started and kept his job. Usually we draft DBs, they last a year or two, then we're drafting another one to play over top of them. So with most of our defensive backfield being free agents right now, three of the four, well, before we lost Steven Nelson, before we cut him, it is hard to have a lot of faith in our scouting department, and especially when you're drafting the kid in the seventh round. This is not a kid with high pedigree, not a kid with a lot of establishment coming out of the college game, and just a very, very small kid. So, hopefully he works out. Hopefully all these players work out. I mean, that never realistically happens. You never hit on 9 players in one draft. If you did, you'd be, running Super Bowl after Super Bowl. So, I mean, realistically, there's always going to be shots. I think this kid's a shot. Maybe he works out, unlikely, but at least they didn't give up, draft picks in the future for him like they did for Loudermilk. So unfortunately, he gets a D. It was an area of need, but I just don't see him making. He probably doesn't even make the team this year. Maybe if he's great in special teams. Otherwise, he's just going to be one of those kids that sits on the practice squad and hopefully gets bigger with strength and conditioning coaches. With our final pick, we picked Percy Harvin the third, or I don't know if he's actually related to the previous Percy Harvin. That'd be kind of cool if he was. Played for the Vikings a few years back as a receiver. This kid's a punter, and we've had a pretty inconsistent punting game, and I think our punter drives the coaches a little bit nuts. I've heard some weird stories about him, so I don't think they really want to keep Jordan Berry. I think they just didn't have a better option the last few years. But he's always been a guy that's been kind of a fringe player, and every year they're kind of looking to replace him. Just they don't have someone to do that with. So this year we actually went out and drafted the kid that was the best punter in college football last year. Hopefully he makes the team. Hopefully he gets Jordan Berry out of here. That'll save us probably about $1 million, $2 million. Having a cheap seventh rounder doing the punting versus having an established veteran doing the punting. That draft savings could be big because right now I think after we sign all our rookies, we're going to be about 3 million over the cap. So if he makes the team and gets Jordan Berry off the roster, that's going to cut us at least a couple million, which might end up saving us having to rework another contract to get under the 2021 salary cap. And that would be huge. So that about does it for the individual player rankings. Overall, I think the team gets a B for this draft. It may look a little bottom heavy based on the visual to get a B, but Loudermilk is graded based off of his trade value and not just his player value. So that is it for today's video. Please like and subscribe. Leave me a comment with anything you would like to see in the future or any comments on how I can improve today's video. And on that, we will call it a day. Thank you and goodbye.